The alien warrior stood on the bridge of his vessel, a towering figure of sinewy strength and discipline. His kind, the Zereth, were known across the galaxy for their unyielding honor and indomitable will. Born into a lineage of warriors, he had earned his rank through countless battles, each scar etched into his obsidian skin a testament to his victories. His mission was simple but crucial: to retrieve a rare energy crystal from a contested planet, a resource that would secure his people's dominance in their sector. He had trusted his crew, his comrades in arms, with his very life. Trust, however, was a fragile thing. The betrayal came without warning. His second-in-command, a Zereth warrior he had mentored for years, orchestrated a mutiny. It began with subtle sabotage, disabling the ship's defenses, cutting off communication lines, and ended with a brutal ambush. They had conspired to take the crystal for themselves, seeking personal glory and power in the Zereth Council. In a heartbeat, the alien warrior found himself surrounded, his crew's loyalty turned into snarling contempt. He fought valiantly, his dual plasma blades a blur of lethal precision, but the odds were insurmountable. In the chaos, a concussive blast ruptured the ship's core, forcing him to make a desperate escape in a damaged pod. As his escape pod hurtled through the void, his thoughts churned with disbelief and rage. Betrayal was anathema to his species, a violation of their deepest code. Yet here he was, cast adrift by those he had trusted most. The isolation clawed at him as the pod entered the atmosphere of a barren, alien world. The planet's surface loomed closer, a desolate expanse of jagged cliffs and swirling storms. The pod crashed with a deafening impact, shattering its fragile frame and leaving him bruised but alive. The air outside was harsh, laced with acrid fumes and unrelenting winds. His armor, a testament to Zereth engineering, filtered the toxins and shielded him from the worst of the elements. But survival would not be easy. His supplies were limited, barely enough food and water for a week. The harsh terrain offered little reprieve, towering spires of black rock jutted out like broken teeth, and the ground beneath his feet was a patchwork of cracked, molten stone. The planet's two suns scorched the surface during the day, and at night, temperatures plummeted to lethal extremes. He scavenged what he could from the wreckage, fashioning makeshift tools and weapons. Days turned into nights, and the alien warrior found himself battling not just the planet's hostile conditions but his own growing despair. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the howling wind and the occasional distant rumble of tectonic activity. Memories of his betrayal haunted him in the stillness. Every scar on his body seemed to ache with the weight of a trust shattered. Despite his physical prowess, even he could not ignore the toll the environment took. His movements grew sluggish, his once sharp reflexes dulled by exhaustion and hunger. The meager rations dwindled rapidly, and he was forced to hunt the sparse wildlife, a task fraught with danger. The creatures here were as hostile as the planet itself, their bodies adapted to the harsh environment in ways he could barely comprehend. One encounter with a predator left his armor dented and his pride wounded, though he emerged victorious. The creature's flesh was barely edible, but it kept him alive for another day. As his body endured, his mind began to wander. He questioned the very foundation of his beliefs. Had his blind adherence to honor and loyalty made him naive? The Zereth Code, once a source of pride, now felt like a chain. The betrayal had shaken something fundamental within him, leaving him adrift not just physically but spiritually. The planet itself seemed to reflect his inner turmoil. Its violent storms mirrored the chaos in his mind, and its barren landscapes echoed his sense of emptiness. Yet, in his lowest moments, a flicker of determination remained. He was a warrior, forged in the crucible of countless battles. He would not let betrayal define him, nor would he let this hostile world claim him. His survival was not just an act of defiance against the elements but a testament to his resilience. On the fifth day, as he scaled a jagged cliff in search of higher ground, he spotted something on the horizon, a faint glimmer of light. It was not natural, the planet's landscape was devoid of anything reflective. This was artificial, a sign that he was not alone. For the first time since the crash, a sliver of hope pierced through his despair. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was enough to reignite his will to survive. Every step toward the light was a struggle, the planet's gravity heavier than what he was accustomed to. His body protested with every movement, yet he pressed on. The betrayal, the isolation, the pain, they fueled him now, a reminder that he had endured worse and emerged stronger. He would find the source of the light, and perhaps, in doing so, find the answers he desperately sought. The human's presence on the desolate planet was the result of a mission gone awry. A skilled engineer and survivalist, she had been part of an exploratory team sent to study the planet's unique geology and harsh ecosystem. When her ship suffered a catastrophic failure, she alone managed to escape, her capsule landing far from any hope of rescue. Stranded for weeks, she relied on her ingenuity, scavenging supplies and adapting to the brutal conditions. Her sharp mind and ability to improvise allowed her to construct a rudimentary shelter and establish a fragile means of survival, but the planet's hostility left little room for error. Her days were consumed by the relentless pursuit of sustenance and safety. Each task, finding water, securing food, repairing her equipment, was a battle against time and exhaustion. She was a pragmatist, driven not by fear but by the necessity to endure. The loneliness, however, weighed heavily on her. With no way to communicate with her team or the outside world, she had resigned herself to the possibility that rescue might never come. Her encounter with the alien began as a distant anomaly, a faint signal picked up on her makeshift scanner. It was intermittent, irregular, but unmistakably artificial. Intrigued and desperate for answers, she set out to locate its source, her curiosity tempered by caution. The journey was treacherous, forcing her to navigate the planet's hazardous terrain while carrying the tools she might need for both repair and defense. When she finally arrived, what she found defied her expectations, a towering figure, clearly extraterrestrial, cloaked in armor that seemed both advanced and battle-worn. The first meeting was charged with tension. The alien's posture was defensive, its movements calculated. She raised her hand slowly, signaling she was unarmed, her voice calm yet firm as she attempted to communicate. The language barrier was immediate and absolute. The alien's vocalizations were guttural, resonating with an almost melodic intensity, while her own words fell into the void of incomprehension. They stood in silence, two beings from vastly different worlds, separated by more than just language. Their mutual distrust was palpable. She observed the alien's body language, noting its readiness to attack at the slightest provocation. Her own instincts urged her to retreat, but the practical side of her recognized the value of an ally. The alien was clearly injured, its movements less fluid than they should have been. She reached into her pack, retrieving a medical kit, and made a deliberate gesture to offer it. The alien hesitated, its gaze narrowing as it assessed her intentions. The fragile connection began to form in small, deliberate acts. She tended to the alien's wounds with practiced care, her hand steady despite the tension. It watched her intently, its suspicions slowly giving way to a tentative acceptance. In turn, the alien demonstrated its strength and skill by assisting her in repairing a damaged piece of her equipment. Though their methods were vastly different, there was a shared understanding in their actions, a silent acknowledgement of each other's capabilities. The collaboration deepened as necessity dictated. When a violent storm descended on the planet, they were forced to take shelter together, their proximity amplifying the sense of vulnerability. The storm's howling winds drowned out any attempt at verbal communication, leaving them reliant on gestures and shared tasks. She marveled at the alien's resourcefulness, its ability to adapt tools and materials with precision and ingenuity. In moments of calm, she noticed its gaze lingering on her makeshift devices, a mix of curiosity and quiet respect. Over time, the human's pragmatism and the alien's disciplined demeanor found a rhythm. She introduced basic symbols to communicate, markings in the dirt that represented danger, resources, and safe paths. The alien, in turn, adapted these symbols, adding its own to expand their shared vocabulary. The exchanges were slow but effective, bridging the gap between two minds driven by the same goal, survival. Her respect for the alien grew as she observed its unyielding resilience. Despite its injuries and the betrayal that had left it stranded, it exhibited a quiet determination that mirrored her own. It was not just a warrior but a survivor, its every action calculated to conserve energy and resources. She saw in it a reflection of her own struggles, a kinship born from adversity. The alien, too, seemed to soften in its approach. Its initial wariness gave way to a guarded camaraderie, marked by small gestures of trust. It shared fragments of its supplies with her, offering a ration of its own food when her stores ran low. She reciprocated by showing it how to extract water from the planet's scarce vegetation, a technique born of weeks of trial and error. These exchanges, though simple, carried a profound weight. They were acts of mutual reliance in an unforgiving world. As their alliance solidified, the human began to piece together fragments of the alien story. It carried itself with a sense of loss, its eyes, strange and luminous, betraying a depth of pain. Though it could not speak of its betrayal, its actions and expressions hinted at a past marked by trust shattered and loyalties broken. She felt an unspoken bond in this shared experience of isolation, each of them bearing the scars of their own battles. The turning point came when the human devised a plan to amplify the alien's beacon, a task requiring both technical expertise and raw strength. She laid out her tools, explaining her intentions through gestures and sketches. The alien observed her intently, its focus unwavering. When the time came to execute the plan, their combined efforts were seamless. She worked with precision, her hands deftly manipulating circuits and wiring, while the alien stabilized the structure, its immense strength countering the planet's unrelenting winds. The success of their endeavor was marked by a faint, steady signal pulsing into the void. It was a small victory, but one that carried immense significance. In that moment, the human felt a spark of hope reignite within her, mirrored in the alien's solemn nod. They were no longer two strangers struggling for survival, they were partners, bound by necessity and a burgeoning trust. Their survival depended on the uneasy rhythm they had established, a balance of effort and reliance that neither fully trusted but both adhered to. The alien had grown accustomed to the human's methods, her meticulous adjustments to her equipment, the way she used observation to navigate the treacherous terrain. In turn, she found herself marveling at the alien's physical prowess and its ability to endure with stoic resolve. There was no shared language yet, but they communicated in efficiency, their actions speaking louder than words ever could. The human's engineering skills became invaluable as the planet's relentless hostility tested their limits. A sudden rupture in her oxygen filter system threatened to incapacitate her, but the alien recognized the danger before she did. It gestured for her to hand over the device, studying its design with intensity before using materials scavenged from its own gear to patch it. She was taken aback by the alien's technical intuition. It worked with precision, its claws surprisingly dexterous as it pieced the mechanism back together. When she tested the repair and found it functioning perfectly, she managed a small, appreciative smile. The alien nodded, its expression inscrutable but the gesture clear. Her contributions were no less critical. The alien's wounds, though healing, left it vulnerable in ways it was unaccustomed to. She crafted protective coverings for the exposed sections of its armor, repurposing scraps from her supplies. When she presented the modifications, the alien inspected them carefully, as if weighing their utility. It donned the coverings without a word, but the glance it gave her carried a subtle acknowledgement, perhaps even gratitude. These exchanges, though brief and practical, became the foundation of their understanding. A moment of crisis solidified their alliance further. A seismic event caused a section of the cliffside they had been navigating to collapse, leaving them stranded on a precarious ledge. The human's quick thinking and the alien's immense strength worked in tandem to secure a way back to safer ground. She fashioned a makeshift anchor system from her climbing gear while the alien used its powerful limbs to stabilize the rope. The peril was immediate, the outcome uncertain, yet neither hesitated. Their survival hinged on mutual trust, and in that moment, it was unspoken but absolute. The human's curiosity about her companion grew as their bond deepened. She noticed the alien's rituals, small, deliberate gestures it performed when the environment was calm. It would trace patterns into the dirt with its claws or arrange stones into symmetrical formations. She couldn't decipher the meaning, but the action seemed purposeful, almost meditative. Respecting its privacy, she refrained from interrupting, though she couldn't help but wonder what these rituals signified. They spoke of a culture far removed from her own, a complexity that made her question her earlier assumptions about the alien's nature. The alien, in turn, seemed intrigued by the human's resourcefulness. It observed her improvisations with what she imagined was a mix of admiration and skepticism. When she fashioned a water filtration system from scavenged parts, the alien examined it closely, its luminous eyes narrowing as it tried to understand the mechanism. She demonstrated how it worked, pouring murky water into the top and letting the clear liquid drip into a container below. The alien tilted its head, mimicking her movements as it tested the device. Its satisfaction was evident in the faint hum it emitted, a sound she had come to associate with approval. Despite their progress, the planet's harsh conditions ensured that every day was a battle. Their food supplies dwindled, forcing them to explore further from their base of operations. The alien led the way through the hazardous terrain, its heightened senses detecting threats she couldn't perceive. She followed closely, relying on its guidance while marking their path for a potential return. Together, they hunted the planet's sparse wildlife, a task requiring both her ingenuity and its brute strength. Each successful hunt was a shared victory, a testament to their growing synchronicity. During moments of rest, their differences became less daunting. The alien seemed to enjoy the act of observing the environment, its gaze often fixed on the shifting sky or the distant storms. She, too, found herself drawn to the planet's stark beauty despite its dangers. One evening, as the two rested in a makeshift shelter, she attempted to bridge their communication gap. Using the dirt floor as her canvas, she drew a crude representation of her home, a sphere to signify Earth, surrounded by smaller shapes to represent its moon and the sun. The alien watched intently before adding its own markings, an intricate pattern that she interpreted as a depiction of its own world. Though they couldn't understand each other's words, the exchange felt profound, a meeting of minds across an immeasurable gulf. The alien's quiet resilience inspired her. It carried itself with a dignity that seemed unshaken even in the face of adversity. She began to see its stoicism not as coldness but as a form of strength, a refusal to be defeated by circumstances. It was a trait she aspired to emulate, finding in it a source of encouragement. The alien, too, seemed to soften in its demeanor. It no longer regarded her with the guarded suspicion of their first encounter but with something closer to acceptance, as if acknowledging her as an equal in their shared struggle. A breakthrough in their relationship came when the human fell ill after consuming tainted food. Weak and disoriented, she was unable to continue their journey. The alien, recognizing her vulnerability, took charge of their survival. It hunted for food, brought water, and ensured their shelter remained secure. She was struck by the care it showed, its actions deliberate and unerring. When she recovered, she found herself indebted not just to its strength but to its unexpected compassion. The experience marked a turning point, solidifying the bond between them in a way that transcended language. As their alliance deepened, so did their understanding of each other. The human began to piece together fragments of the alien story through its actions and expressions. It seemed to carry a heavy burden, a weight that went beyond their immediate circumstances. She sensed a profound loss in its demeanor, an unspoken grief that mirrored her own sense of isolation. In its stoic resolve, she found a reflection of her struggles, a shared determination to endure despite the odds. Together, they forged a fragile harmony, each compensating for the other's weaknesses while building on their strengths. Their partnership was not without challenges, but it was grounded in mutual respect and the shared goal of survival. Through every obstacle, they proved to each other, and perhaps to themselves, that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, there was strength to be found in unity. The discovery of a shared purpose marked the turning point in their alliance. The beacon, barely functional and ancient in design, represented their best hope for rescue. Its technology was alien to her but familiar to the warrior, who immediately set to work diagnosing its flaws. She observed as the alien dismantled the device with a combination of precision and urgency, its expertise evident in every movement. When it gestured for her to assist, she didn't hesitate. Her engineering background and his advanced knowledge formed a synergy that allowed them to piece together a plan to restore the beacon's signal. They worked tirelessly, driven by the promise of salvation. Her ingenuity with improvisation complemented his understanding of the device's intricate systems. Using salvaged components from both their equipment, they constructed a hybrid solution, a patchwork of human and alien technology that pushed the limits of their respective skills. Each success was met with a quiet nod of acknowledgement, a silent agreement that their partnership was stronger than their individual efforts. As they neared completion, the beacon began to emit a faint, rhythmic pulse, a signal reaching out into the void. But the planet was not without its dangers. The activation of the beacon drew the attention of local predators, creatures adapted to the planet's harsh conditions and drawn to the unfamiliar energy. Their approach was marked by guttural roars and the tremor of their movements. The human and alien quickly fortified their position, setting up defenses with whatever they could find. The alien's strength and combat training were crucial as it took the lead in repelling the initial wave of attacks. She supported from the rear, using a makeshift weapon to hold off any creatures that slipped past its guard. The battle was relentless, testing their endurance and their trust in each other. Every move was a coordinated effort. Her agility and quick thinking complemented the alien's sheer power and tactical precision. At one critical moment, when a predator threatened to overwhelm her, the alien intervened without hesitation, placing itself between her and the danger. It fought with a ferocity born of necessity, its actions a stark reminder of its warrior's spirit. She, in turn, refused to let fear dictate her actions, her resolve matching the alien's as they fought side by side. As the attack subsided, both stood exhausted but unbroken. The alien's armor bore new scars, and her hands trembled from the exertion, but the beacon's pulse remained steady. They had protected their hope, and in doing so, solidified the bond between them. The silent understanding that had grown between them now carried a weight of mutual respect and trust. There was no need for words, their actions had spoken volumes. In the aftermath, they reinforced the beacon's position, ensuring it would remain operational despite the planet's hostility. The alien used its advanced tools to strengthen the signal, while she devised a way to stabilize the energy output with her limited resources. The collaboration was seamless, their individual skills blending into a unified effort. When the beacon emitted its first full-strength signal, a wave of relief washed over both of them. It was a moment of triumph, not just for the progress they had made but for the partnership that had brought them to this point. As they waited for a response, the alien revealed more of itself in subtle ways. It crafted a small object from the debris around them, a token of sorts that it presented to her with a solemn gesture. She accepted it, recognizing the significance of the act. It wasn't just a gift, it was an acknowledgement of their shared journey and the trust they had built. She responded in kind, showing it a photograph she had carried with her, a snapshot of her family on Earth. The alien studied the image intently, its expression unreadable but its attention unwavering. In that moment, they bridged the gap between their worlds, not through technology or language, but through the shared humanity of connection. Days passed with no response to the beacon's signal, yet neither gave in to despair. They fell into a routine of maintenance and survival, each taking turns to guard their position and scout the surrounding area for resources. The human marveled at the alien's resilience, its ability to endure the harsh conditions without complaint. It seemed tireless, its focus unbroken even in the face of uncertainty. She found herself drawing strength from its presence, a steady reminder that survival was possible even in the most unforgiving circumstances. When the response finally came, it was a faint but unmistakable signal from an approaching vessel. The alien immediately began preparing for departure, its movements purposeful and efficient. She joined in, gathering their remaining supplies and securing the beacon's location for the rescuers. The arrival of the ship marked the culmination of their efforts, a testament to their determination and partnership. As they boarded the vessel, the human couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and bittersweet reflection. Their time on the planet had been brutal, yet it had forged a bond that transcended the barriers between their species. The alien, too, seemed changed. Its demeanor, once guarded and aloof, now carried a subtle warmth in its interactions with her. It remained quiet, its focus shifting to the journey ahead, but there was a noticeable ease in its movements, a lightness that suggested it had found something it hadn't realized it needed. As they sat in silence, side by side in the rescue vessel, the human glanced at her companion and saw not just a warrior but a survivor who had shared in her struggle and emerged stronger for it. Their journey back to civilization was marked by a sense of closure. They had endured the worst together, and in doing so, had discovered the strength that comes from unity. Though their paths would inevitably diverge, the connection they had forged on that desolate planet would remain, a reminder of what could be achieved when two beings from vastly different worlds chose to trust in one another.